Okay, we have started recording and we can begin. Welcome to Quest Outdoors. Once again, we're opening up, getting ready to test the gear. Go ahead here, see how our equipment is, and put our second test podcast up. I am Jay, here with Don. There he is. What a good-looking man sitting down there. My goodness. We're going to go through our test here, cover a couple of topics, and then put out our second podcast. So again, welcome to Quest Outdoors. Don, let's talk a little bit about public land. Let's talk a little bit about the parasite that's impacting deer, and talk a little bit about preseason scouting here. So as we're into early January, and we more or less have concluded the hunting season for 2025. We're in 2026 now. What do you like to do, and when do you like to get out and start looking for drops and start doing your spring scouting? What time of year do you like to do that?
So we're in 26 right now. In my area, I usually don't do any shed hunting until mid-March. I mean, yes, the deer have dropped some of their antlers, but a majority of them are still wearing their headgear. I've seen deer around here late March, early April, still wearing headgear. We have a lot of food sources around here. This is partly farm country and hardwoods, so we have plenty of food to eat, usually for the deer. So, I mean, stress and winter and change of habit is usually what causes in the deer, the bucks, the testosterone and their bloodstream and stuff starts wearing down, and they'll start losing their antlers. So that's that part of it. Usually what I do in the in the wintertime is when I'm doing some scouting, I'm looking for scrapes, big ones.
So you're out checking previous groundwork.
Yeah,
That's just concluded while you can still see it.
I'm looking for groundwork where I didn't hunt before. I'm looking some different areas where I didn't hunt for to see the signs. And, if I didn't see the deer I'm looking for where I was hunting, then I'm going to look somewhere else where I wasn't hunting. So that's what I'm looking for. And that'll tell you, at least if something's still alive and what kind of hunting pressure was there, and you might find some sheds. Typically I don't find a lot of sheds around. You know when I find the sheds here? I find the sheds when I'm hunting in fall.
You find the stuff
It's
that the
weird.
mouse haven't got.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Weird.
unique. That's unique. And I definitely want to get out, and I want to do some late or close season, early spring scouting. I want to put the drone up too. We talked a little bit earlier about getting out in some of the wetlands, some of the marshy areas, and doing some reconnaissance with the drone to try to figure out where deer might be held up, where they might be moving and whatnot. You had mentioned earlier you had a spot you wanted to check out.
Yeah. A few years ago, a friend of mine told me, I was just telling him, and it didn't just happen. I have seen deer while hunting especially during the rut, that weren't from my area. They must have come from somewhere else. They weren't on my trail cameras. I had seen them, didn't know anything about them. So we know that deer travel, right, during the rut. They don't just stick to their base area. They move. Lots of theories about that, right? 5 miles, a mile, a couple miles. So there was an area that I'm going to say 1.5 miles from my general hunting spot. It's a huge lumbered area. I think it was
Clear
lumbered at one time.
cut, something. Yeah.
And it's wide open, and it's marshy, boggy, and it's big. I mean, it's probably 400 acres, and I'd like to get the drone. I was gonna fly. I do have a drone, but I haven't used mine. I'm not like you. I'm not existing. Yours is better than mine. So I'd like to get the drone over there and fly over that area. A friend of mine told me you ought to be checking that out because it's probably a bedding, hiding spot. And it'd be interesting to check that out, right? And, you know, we've got some properties we're gonna look at in Ohio, so we're gonna fly it down there. I don't know what your opinion is about this, or we haven't really talked about it. But I don't know, I don't know if we should be using, if we're gonna use infrared at some point, or I mean, so the drone, your drone,
I do not currently have thermal infrared imaging on mine, so you can buy a camera and add it to it. I've got the DJI camera that came with my whole kit, and that's the one option that at this point I haven't added on. I haven't added that to the device. I don't know whether I will or not. Again, you know, when it comes to tracking deer after you've shot them, it might be something of value. But for
yeah, I
just
don't think we need it to check. The
just a
spot.
general scout, I don't think that's
Right.
really. But yeah, the wetland sounds good, and I'd love to get it out there. And
Yeah, we got some properties we're gonna check out, we're gonna use it on. That we, you know, when we get down to Ohio, I don't know how much of that's been hunted there. We're gonna get in there and check that out. That's gonna be one of our trips there. And we're gonna look for the signs and drops down there too. But yes, that's a good way to find out what's left after hunting season.
you get an opportunity to pick out some runways, especially right now where there's very little snow on the ground and a lot of mud out there. You could really see where deer are moving around,
Right.
which could get you in the right spot for the right deer. We talked a little bit earlier about the microbacteria, if you will, that's been causing some hemorrhaging in deer and really wreaking havoc on them around some of the wetlands that have dried but not completely dried up, where the deer are coming to get water and the impact it has on them. Talk a little bit about what that is, if you would, and then share kind of your experiences with it.
You know, I mean, we haven't had that problem in my county here in about 7-8 years. But we did have it hit here once, about 8 years ago. And, you know, here's what happens normally. I mean, you can always look this up and get the biological information on it. But so EHD is a small mite that likes to breed and survive in mud, basically. So if you get your lakes, your streams, your rivers, your water holes, all the places that deer get drinks from, what happens is when they start drying up, where the shorelines or the edges were that had water in it is now mud. So that's where the mite survives. When the deer goes to get a drink, the mite bites them, gets on them, bites them, and so what you get is internal hemorrhaging. And it's quick, 24, 36, 48 hours. They either survive or they die. So if you're trying to check your area and see how bad it is, if you do have a problem, you're going to be looking around water sources, and you'll find the deer floating sometimes in the water
Wow,
because they get a fever and they want to cool off, and so that's usually where they expire. And if it's bad, you'll find them. You'll know. So yes, we had some here in Michigan this year. Some of the counties in Michigan got stricken, and Indiana, Ohio both had some areas, and it seems to go in areas, right? It doesn't. It's not usually statewide. So everything around here was so dry. Around here, it dried right up. We didn't have any mud. It just dried right up. So I did not find any, nor did I hear anything about that problem in our county. But when it happens, what happens is you lose your whole deer herd in that area for 4 or 5 more years.
Oh yeah, and
So you're gonna
definitely.
be short.
That's really something. You know, when you look at the way that the state goes about trying to eradicate disease, chronic wasting and that kind of stuff, and you take a look at the way a lot of municipalities spray for mosquitoes, that also leads me to think that there's probably some solution out there that they could be putting down to control that a little bit better, but you just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, another problem we have that they that sometimes you don't pay much attention to is ticks. So,
Lyme disease and whatnot.
I heard several times this year, and not just in Michigan, but other places, Kansas, Missouri, other states, there were some deer harvested that were, I don't remember the number, but that were loaded with ticks. And
Yeah.
that interferes with the deer's health too. And not only that, but the deer can survive from the tick bites and ticks unless they get so many of them on it. But it also interferes with their size, with their
Genetically.
even if they live, you know. So there's some serious issues out there. I don't know what I haven't heard any answers to how EHD, the DNR here in Michigan. I've read and see what they say, and they say that it's just a cycle. It goes every so many years, and then we don't have a problem with it. And they say that the history goes way back 50 plus years ago. When I was a kid, I don't remember ever hearing about it or ever seeing about it.
No, me either.
So I don't
But
know anything. I don't know, but I do know that if it strikes your area, you're looking for another deer hunting spot. Which then again, here's another problem, right? The hunters have to move. They want to go deer hunting, so next thing you know, you got more deer hunters in your area.
yeah. Well, here's another question too. When you look at the DNR and the management here in this state, a lot of times they leave questions for me on credibility, just simply of the fact that we had a few years ago a coy wolf that was killed in the Kalamazoo area while people were out coyote hunting. You've had claims that the cougar population isn't in the lower peninsula. Yet I got an associate of mine that lives in Belmont who's had multiple cougars on his Ring doorbell. So, when you look at the DNR and the information that they're giving you, sometimes it makes me wonder.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough job, right? Being a DNR officer, being a policeman, being any of those types of occupations. But yes, if you look at the rules and the regulations in other states, Illinois, for example, Wisconsin, our tri-state area, let's just take those for example. They have tried other things and been unsuccessful at it. And they've got Illinois, Indiana, both, it's $1 now. So, if you want to get into that subject, it's pretty deep. They have $1, so we're still shooting $2 here.
So they've cut the overall harvest down significantly there, huh?
Well, I think their theory is if you're shooting all the bucks and you're not shooting enough does, then pretty soon you're going to have all does and not enough bucks, right? And I think that's what we have here now. If you talk to some people, let's say further north of us, you talk to some people over there, the hunters up there refuse to shoot does. They want to shoot bucks, and our herd's getting out of balance. Wisconsin tried this years ago. They had a reward system. If you shoot a doe, if you would shoot a doe, they'll let you shoot an extra buck. And all that happened there was they started killing too many deer. So the Department of Natural Resources in all states is I think they have different theories, right? Michigan's theory seems to be, right? I don't know, I'm not gonna point fingers here at it, but it seems to me like they're more interested in money. Selling licenses, selling more licenses, now they're talking about, I don't know if these bills have gone through, if they're actually legit, I've heard rumor. So now they're talking about, for example, fishing now. They're talking about you can use an extra pole. I don't know where the rules are gonna apply, I'm not sure if they went through. You can use an extra pole when you're fishing in Lake Michigan for an extra fee. So I don't know. What do you think? And
It's
so
not
all
about-
of these hunting
I don't
licenses, right? You buy another hunt license, you can do this. Is it really about the control of the herd? for deer? Is it really about that, or is it just?
Wildlife management as a whole, and that's back to the point that I was making too. You know, when you really don't know, I mean, we've got black bear sightings that we've had in a little north of Grand Rapids, and you know, I've heard on other occasions where the DNRs claim that the black bear aren't down this far. And like I said about the coy wolf earlier, the DNR is talking about prosecuting the guy that shot the coy wolf down there because they said, quote unquote, he should have known better. Well, if you've ever seen the coy wolf, it's basically a larger coyote, but they look very much the same, just a larger coyote. How in a distance through a scope are you going to identify such a thing? And when you're not managing the herd correctly, I guess, or you don't know what the herd consists of, it adds more complications.
Yeah, I mean, we need the Department of Natural Resources, but for me, this is my opinion and my opinion only. They should listen to the sportsmen more often, I think. I think that there's some good input there, and we should have some say. There's lots of different opinions, right, about that, and it's a touchy subject.
One of the things that I noticed, that was about a year ago, maybe it was a little bit longer than that, was at a sportsman's club and was talking with some of the board of directors there at the club, and they were talking about a Feed the Hungry program that they had where sportsmen could bring their deer in, and the state recognized that and provided the processor with some level of financial reimbursement or purchasing of the meat, something to that aspect, and they were taking the meat and they were giving it to homeless people, to homeless institutions, and it was good, natural protein for them. And then they stopped doing that, and no longer were they financing it. And you know, that's something that could solve a lot of problems. But again, when you come back to management, you come back to herd management, you come back to the law enforcement aspect of things, and what the Department of Natural Resources is actually doing, it leaves a lot of questions in my mind.
Right. Well, I think they still have the program, but they don't fund it anymore. You got to pay for it. If you donate, you can donate a deer here to our local butcher here by us, and pay for it and have it donated. But you got to pay for it. I mean, I don't mind doing.
Nothing against the processor.
It would be, but it would help out if they did still fund it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you have them with welfare recipients and a lot of the less fortunate families who wind up needing food, and you got a great source of protein that sportsmen could be out filling the bill on that, and they're simply defunding programs like that. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yep. I think a lot of problems would be resolved, or could be resolved, if they would do a little more listening to the sportsmen. And we have organizations, right, that go to the meetings and voice their opinions, and groups, you know, they're in fishing and hunting both. But I mean, we got a problem right now, in case you don't know that. Everybody doesn't know that. If you go on social media right now, or you go on the news and you watch the news in Michigan right now, the legislators there's people in the legislation that are representing you that are complaining about the DNR right now, about a lot of things. They're trying to, this going onto somebody's property without permission, bothering somebody while they're hunting. All of these incidences are being talked about right now, and I don't know what's going on in other states, but I know what's going on in ours. And our personal conservation officer here in our area here is that I have his phone number. I speak to him when I have problems out in the woods or something's going on. I think he's a great guy. It's a tough job, but it's legislation, right? That's where the problem is. I don't think it's the people trying to apply the law. It's the laws themselves that are being established by the legislation. And you can talk about it. It's a hot subject.
One of the things I look at is the biology aspect of it. It's a lot different being a biologist than it is being a law enforcement officer. And, being out in the field from a biochemistry perspective and trying to understand what it is that's negatively impacting wildlife and actually doing something about it. I know by me right now, the voles are out of control and they're just tearing the trees to death. And I've not heard one thing about any biological aspect of controlling a varmint like that from the Department of Natural Resources. And we get back to public lands and whatnot, where a lot of the wetlands are, and the fact that there's this not necessarily a virus, but this mite out there that's raising havoc on things, and they're not doing anything about it that we know about. Maybe they are, and they just aren't telling us.
Yeah, I don't think, I would be puzzled to what they could do about that too, about EHD. I mean, there's so many water holes, there's so many places for deer, for that mite to bite the deer. I mean, maybe they can eradicate it by studying it and figuring out how to, where it developed and things like that, but I don't see that happening. And furthermore, I mean, the DNR, you're gonna have if you have a bad experience outdoors, I don't care if you're camping, fishing, hunting, skiing, whatever pertains to the outdoors, and you have a bad experience with them, that spreads like wildfire. It's like, next thing you know, you got a lot of dislikes. When I say a bad experience, I mean anything from a talking to a ticket to a poor explanation, anything like that. You get a bad. So, earlier in one of our podcasts that we're still trying to recover, right? We talked about state land hunting, right? Theft in the woods. Somebody stealing your tree stand, somebody stealing your camera, somebody smashing your camera, somebody giving you flat tires on your vehicle. So, I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? So when you call that into the DNR, when you talk to them about it, it's state land. It's like, all of these bad incidences out in the woods end up with somebody with a bad name.
Well, we spend a lot of time, especially in the summertime, visiting the state parks and really appreciate the quality of state parks that we have here where we live. But
Yeah.
I ask the question in all the parks that we go to, there are a number of DNR officers that are writing parking tickets and going through, as you implied earlier, the revenue generation aspect of things. So you can put all of these traffic control and parking control things into place. You've got all of these DNR officers all summer long working these state parks just all over the place. But when then we get to the wildlife management, the conservation, and the policing of the wildlife state-controlled areas, it just seems like there are minimal resources that are allocated to that because it doesn't generate enough revenue, if you will, but there are more resources allocated to the parks and recreation areas where they can generate more revenue. And not that I'm picking on the Department of Natural Resources, but at the end of the day, we from a sportsman's perspective, there are a lot of things that could always be improved in everything you look at, and it's the dedication of resources to fix a problem. And what's the solution to the problem, and are you really dedicating the appropriate amount of resources to it? So we could beat that horse to death, but
Yeah, we can.
I want to get back on the public land and doing a little bit of scouting here. So we talked a little bit earlier about how you find that sweet spot in the woods and how you get away from the general population and from high traffic areas, and what at the end of the day you wind up getting, or how close you wind up putting yourself in proximity to where a bigger deer, a smarter deer will generally travel. And we had talked about getting out and doing some scouting and checking out some wetlands, as we just discussed. And I really think that, like most states, public land offers a lot of options for the outdoorsman who wants to walk the extra mile, who isn't afraid to get his feet a little bit wet now and then. But it's important as a hunter, I think, to really get out in those areas and get your exploration and your scouting done where people aren't. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I've kind of done that my whole life. I usually walk my tree stands, some of my tree stands are a mile in. I don't know if that doesn't seem like very far, maybe to some people, but it's far enough to get me away from most people. But what I found out through the years is people are going further into the woods now. I've got people on my cameras, walking by my cameras, that I never, in spots that I'm the only one that's hunted that, and I'm the only one that I see in the last couple of years. So people are starting to expand out, and they're starting to get in further, and they're starting to walk in. And I mean, my honest opinion about all of this is the hunting pressure is, maybe it's just me, but it's worse than it ever was. They keep saying we don't have enough deer hunters here in Michigan, and we're not teaching the young people, and they're losing interest. I don't know how that's possible. I can't figure that out for the life of me. Is that propaganda to sell more licenses?
It must be.
Is that what that is?
I don't know. I mean, and that's the biggest gray area, right, is the lack of information. The lack of information and the communications, or the poor communications that we get from the Department of Natural Resources here in the state. It begs the question, what are you guys really doing? What do you really know, and are you a trustworthy source?
I had a hunting spot this year that I scouted in September. Bedding area big time. Deer trails all over the place. Trees to hang tree stands in there. A swamp in the backside of it, a swampy, marshy area. Perfect hiding place that we're talking about here. Never saw a mark on a tree stand in that area, period. No one had been, it was thick, I'll tell you that. It was thick in there. And I got in there, briars, I mean thick, ugly, but I got in there and there was an open area in there. This perfect ambush spot, right? So I'm in there looking, put cameras in there, set stuff up, told a couple of my buddies, hey, this is a secret spot. This is a good spot. I'll be darned if hunting season didn't come around, my camera started showing people up in there. I guarantee you that nobody was hunting in there. Nobody had been in there before. And this is what's going on. I'm just saying, Onyx and all of these apps and all of this material that's out there, people are desperately looking for their hunting places. They want to get outdoors, and there's plenty of people out there. It's not that. We don't have a lack of, when I was 16 years old, the places that I hunted, and you know this, you've been there yourself, we never saw nobody.
Yeah.
We never had a person in there. We're back in there.
Yeah.
We never had anybody.
Thick,
and now, during
wet.
archery season now in Michigan is not too bad, but when gun season open, man, I don't even go out there no more. So I think that the state land, pre-scouting, and all of that works. It's great. It's fine. You have fun and everything. But when you see where somebody's had a ground blind and they leave stuff out in the woods, when you see that, and then you see cars parked and you see this and this and that, you're probably not going to be able to use a lot of your tactics that you like to use.
Yeah.
That you believe in, whether it's how you wash your clothes, whether how you smell, whether you have whether you use scent control or you use all the tactics that you use, probably aren't going to work. There's somebody else is going to trounce through there and leave their scent, and who knows? But it's a challenge, right? It's a gigantic challenge.
Yeah, no kidding. As the pressure picks up, the technology improves. People, I don't know, there's a lot of people who get more and more in shape. They push further into the woods, and you get a better prepared, better quality of hunter, and they get out there a little bit further. But isolating it down and finding that big buck and getting where they're at becomes more and more of a challenge. So it's problems and solutions, right? It's trying to find that solution to the public land problem that could be overrun.
You got to start looking at yourself and figure out what kind of a hunter you are and what kind of an outdoors person you are and how much do you enjoy, well, how do you enjoy the outdoors? Is it peace of mind? Is it an adventure? I mean, is it like a fix for you? Is it does it make you, is it good for your mental health? You know, it's something to look forward to. You got to start looking at all of these things, right? And for me, this is what I like. It's not the harvesting of the animal, the killing of the animal. To me, it's the setup. It's finding out if that deer is actually there, and then trying to figure out how to ambush him, and trying to put my
The
tree
chess
stand
game.
up. Yeah,
The chess game, if
putting
you
my
will.
tree stand up in the right spot, cutting off some limbs and clearing my area, and all of that leads up to that. That's what's fun to me, and that's what makes. And when I'm in the woods, I don't know about you or anybody else. I don't care if I'm even camping, right? It's peaceful. I forget about all of the
Yeah.
problems that there are in the world and in my
Cleansing.
life, and it's relaxation.
Cleansing.
It's peace of mind. Happiness is simple, right? It's the world that convinces you it's complicated.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. It really is. All right. Well, let's cut this one a little bit short today as we're testing and working through the gear here. I'm going to wrap up here with a few final comments. So I'm going to pass it back to you real quick for final comments, and then we'll close it out.
Well, my final comment is this. You know, people will always want to hear stories told by human voices and seen by human faces. And that's what we're here for. That's what Quest Outdoors is here for. We want to hear all kinds of opinions. We want to hear good and bad. We know we're not perfect. We know we might say something that someone might not like, but we want to hear it all. We'd like to help. We want to help.
Yeah.
If we have to, we'll investigate it.
It's not just for the seasoned, experienced hunter. Quest Outdoors is for everyone, for the novice hunter, for the kids just getting out there, for someone who wants to invest in a hunting trip, for adventure in and of itself. So with that, we're gonna tie it off here and thank everybody for listening. And your adventure starts here. Keep it real.